The air here possesses the deep, resonant stillness of ancient velvet, cool against the skin and profoundly calming. You can detect the faint mineral scent of space settling, a subtle aroma of iron and undisturbed vacuum. Feel the gentle, slow rhythm of your own breath deepen, synchronizing with an immense, unhurried backdrop, a rhythm that suggests time itself moves with the weight of deep, cosmic water. You are suspended within this quiet, timeless expanse. Chapter 1. The Nebular Cradle Molecular Clouds. Our journey begins not with fire, nor with brilliance, but with immense, profound stillness, within vast, sprawling stellar nurseries known as molecular clouds. These colossal structures are reservoirs of potential energy, cold and dense, composed primarily of molecular hydrogen and traces of cosmic dust. We speak of regions spanning hundreds of light years across, environments where the temperature hovers near a mere 10 Kelvin, a profound coldness that presses upon all matter. Within this frigid matrix, gravity, that unstoppable, patient force, begins its inescapable work. It is the invisible, pervasive sculptor, gradually gathering pockets of gas and dust into increasingly dense filaments. Imagine the sheer scale of this gathering. Individual clumps of material, perhaps the size of small solar systems, accumulate matter so slowly, so meticulously, that the time scale dwarfs human comprehension entirely. The initial density fluctuations, caused by passing stellar winds or gravitational instabilities within the parent molecular cloud, create variances in mass. Some regions reach critical densities, falling into gravitational collapse, while others merely drift, suspended in the cosmic currents. It is in these most concentrated knots of matter that the process accelerates, gently but inexorably. The pristine, dark gas begins to compress, accumulating the mass necessary to initiate the next grand phase of cosmic evolution. The gravitational pull becomes powerful enough to overcome the internal molecular pressure, initiating the first critical, irreversible phase of stellar formation. Chapter 2. Protostars, the Infalling Embrace. As a localized pocket of gas achieves sufficient density, it transitions into a protostar, the nascent heart of a star, still deeply shrouded and far from emitting reliable, steady light. This phase is characterized by a spectacular, yet profoundly quiet ballet of infall. The material continues to collapse inward, driven by the inexorable strength of its own accumulated mass. The surrounding envelope of gas and dust, the natal cocoon, acts as a shroud, obscuring the light from the growing core. Within this cocoon, the pressure rapidly escalates. While the core remains too cool for nuclear fusion, requiring millions of degrees Kelvin, the kinetic energy of the infalling material translates into tremendous heat. This increasing heat generates powerful bipolar outflows, streams of stellar wind material that are funneled out perpendicular to the accretion disk, a flat, spinning structure of gas and dust circling the protostar. These powerful outflows, though forceful in their action, maintain a predictable rhythmic cycle. They carve out immense cavities within the remaining molecular cloud, marking the slow, delicate birth of the stellar system. The protostar deepens its gravitational potential well, gathering and heating its core with every passing epoch. It is a period of immense, controlled accretion, slowly refining the raw stellar material into a more coherent, radiant entity. The gradual decline of the infalling material marks the approaching end of this deeply embedded, preparatory phase. Chapter 3 Tauri Stars and Pre-Main Sequence Life. As the gravitational infall begins to wane, if the surrounding fuel source is exhausted, the object sheds its deepest cocoon, revealing itself as a Tauri star or similar pre-main sequence object. This stage marks a transition from a purely collapsing, accreting sphere to a more stable protoluminosity phase. While still not yet fully stable in the robust, steady luminosity we define as a true main sequence star, the core heating continues relentlessly. The primary mechanism now is gravitational contraction, not fusion. The object is contracting under its own weight, spiraling towards a minimum size and maximum temperature through the slow, elegant mechanics of stellar physics. The luminosity of the star fluctuates in a predictable pattern, influenced by the final ejections of angular momentum and the cleaning out of residual gas. The stellar radius slowly decreases, and the surface temperature steadily rises, moving toward the exquisite equilibrium state that defines the main sequence. The star is essentially tuning itself, refining its internal structure over millions of years, shedding the chaotic, vigorous energy of its youth for the steady, dependable burn that characterizes stellar adulthood. The descent toward the main sequence is a testament to the perfect, methodical nature of physical laws. Chapter 4 The Main Sequence Heartbeat Hydrogen Fusion. We arrive now at the main sequence, the stable, magnificent era of the star's life, the breathtaking period of sustained equilibrium. This is the epoch defined by the perfect, harmonious balance between opposing forces, the outward push of thermal pressure generated by fusion, and the inward, ceaseless draw of gravity. Our solar mass star, a G-type star, enters this phase, achieving a steadiness that will last roughly 10 billion years, assuming adequate fuel supply. At the core, within the star's unimaginable depths, the stellar furnace reignites. Hydrogen nuclei, simple, light particles, are pressed together, heated, and subjected to pressures exceeding 3 billion atmospheres. Here, the process of proton-proton chain fusion begins. 4 hydrogen nuclei are systematically transformed, losing mass and combining energy, ultimately forming a single helium nucleus. This conversion of hydrogen to helium is not merely a chemical reaction. It is the ultimate physical manifestation of energy release. The energy released generates massive outward radiation pressure, effectively buttressing the star against the crushing weight of its own mass. The star settles into a beautiful, dependable pulsation. The core, hydrogen, steadily depletes, maintaining the outward thermal force required to perfectly counter the gravitational collapse. This balance, gravity versus pressure, is the single most enduring and stable mechanism in the cosmos, a perfect, slow dance of force and counterforce unfolding over eons. Chapter 5. The Goldilocks Zone, Fuel Consumption and Core Exhaustion. The longevity of the main sequence is defined by fuel management, a process proceeding with agonizing slowness. The core, over billions of years, systematically depletes its supply of usable hydrogen, converting it into an inert, increasingly dominant blanket of helium ash. This accumulation of non-fusing helium at the center is the first hint, the subtle, gentle signal of change. As the hydrogen supply diminishes, the rate of fusion gradually begins to slow. The star's luminosity remains relatively constant for vast periods, but the internal dynamics begin to shift. The nuclear fusion processes, the proton-proton chain, become less vigorous, causing the hydrostatic equilibrium to become momentarily, subtly unbalanced. To sustain the necessary outward pressure, the star must begin drawing hydrogen not just from the core, but from an increasingly expansive shell that forms around the depleted helium center. This shell burning initiates a new, secondary energy source, increasing the overall thermal output of the burning material. The star, feeling the diminishing reserves, starts to respond by swelling slightly, a subtle, barely measurable expansion in its outer layers. This transition signals the end of the stable main sequence phase, initiating the star's journey away from predictable equilibrium and towards its next monumental, gradual stage of life. Chapter 6. Red Giant Ascendancy, Shell Burning. Once the hydrogen reserves within the core are significantly exhausted, the star undergoes the dramatic, yet methodical, transformation into a red giant. This phase is driven by the energetic release from the surrounding hydrogen shell, which continues to fuse intensely around the inert helium core. The lack of fusion in the center causes the core material to begin contracting and heating rapidly, while the increased energy output from the outer shell causes the star's outer atmosphere to expand dramatically and cool significantly. The once tightly controlled, efficient G-type star swells hundreds of times its original size. The surface temperature drops, leading to the characteristic reddish, deep hue, hence the classification, red giant. The radiating plasma expands outward, creating immense, diffuse outer layers that stretch into the interplanetary and even interstellar void. These giant atmospheres are tenuous and vast, expanding across unimaginable distances. This gentle expansion is fueled by the increasing pressure from the vigorous shell fusion, reacting to the contracting, superhot yet non-fusing helium core. Star stuff is drawn out into the void, forming a vast, enveloping aura of glowing gas. This epoch is one of increasing stellar girth and decreasing surface heat, marking a period of profound, overwhelming expansion driven by the physics of layered energy sources. Chapter 7, Helium Flash and Core Fusion Restart. The core, having contracted and accumulated enough thermal energy from the surrounding shell, eventually reaches an unprecedented density and temperature. This critical threshold, typically exceeding 100 million Kelvin, triggers the next profound stellar event, the helium flash. This is the moment when the helium nuclei, previously inert, gain enough energy to overcome their mutual electrostatic repulsion and begin fusing together. They recombine into carbon and oxygen via the triple alpha process. The helium flash itself is a rapid, intense burst of energy confined initially to the extremely dense core, reigniting fusion within the center. This sudden, internal resurgence of fusion energy provides a powerful countervailing pressure against the deepening gravitational pull, mitigating the rapid collapse. As the core reestablishes fusion, the star achieves a temporary, renewed stability, settling into a helium-burning phase. The red giant then stabilizes its core, establishing a momentary, revised equilibrium. The star's structure is now highly layered: an outer hydrogen-burning shell, a middle core burning helium, and a super-dense, inert remnant center. It is a temporary, complex, multi-layered existence, a sophisticated management of dwindling reserves. Chapter 8, The Gentle Decline, the Asymptotic Giant Branch. The eventual exhaustion of the core's helium fuel leads the star into another phase of profound, structural rearrangement, known as the Asymptotic Giant Branch, AGB. This is a time when the star's layered energy sources continue to interact in a slow, complex interplay of pressures. The central helium fuel is depleted, leaving behind a profoundly inert carbon-oxygen core. The energy sources are now relegated to two highly active, surrounding burning shells, one fusing helium and another external shell fusing hydrogen around the helium-burning zone. The star swells again, even larger and more diffuse than the previous red giant phase, its layers becoming increasingly tenuous and massive. The overall luminosity begins a slow, measured decline across millennia, despite the continued vigorous burning in the multiple shells. During this phase, the star undergoes massive pulsations, shedding its outer layers into the interstellar medium in vast, gentle eruptions known as stellar winds or planetary nebulas. These expelled layers of glowing gas, the signature of the star's passing, can take the form of beautiful, symmetrical, expanding shells, composed primarily of enriched elements like carbon and oxygen, elements forged deep within the stellar forge. Chapter 9, The Planetary Nebula and Elemental Gift. The ultimate act of a star this size is the spectacular shedding of its remains. As the AGB star sheds its outermost layers, It forms a beautiful, glowing structure known as a planetary nebula. This nebula is not a planet's companion, but a vast cloud of gas and plasma that has been gently puffed away by the star's intense stellar winds, illuminated by the brilliant ultraviolet radiation emitted by the newly exposed, hot, dense core. The composition of this nebula is crucial, representing the star's final, fundamental gift to the galaxy. These expanding layers contain elements created and processed throughout the star's entire lifespan: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, neon, and the trace elements of its own fusion reactions. The star is, in essence, recycling its most valuable building blocks, scattering them into the void for the next generation of stars and planetary systems to utilize. Once the outer glowing gas disperses fully, the remnants of the stellar heart are exposed. All the complex, burning energy has ceased. Only the incredibly dense, cooling structure remains. Chapter 10. The White Dwarf Cooling to Silence. What remains at the very center of the former red giant, the heart that sustained the star's monumental life, is a white dwarf. This is the stark, definitive endpoint for solar mass stars. The white dwarf is not a dead cinder, but a planet-sized, incredibly dense ball of superheated carbon and oxygen plasma. It retains residual heat and light, glowing softly against the deep backdrop of space. It is supported entirely by a quantum mechanical principle called electron degeneracy pressure. This pressure, arising from the fundamental resistance of electrons to being squeezed into smaller spaces, is what perfectly counteracts the relentless, enduring force of gravity. This support mechanism is non-negotiable and supremely stable, allowing the white dwarf to resist further gravitational collapse without the need for active fusion. A final, quiet testament to physics. The white dwarf begins a slow, majestic, and predictable decline. Its internal heat slowly radiates away, minute by minute, over epochs that surpass any recorded history on Earth. The visible glow gradually diminishes, shifting from brilliant white to red, and eventually fading into a state of near-perfect thermal equilibrium. Conclusion: the ghost star. The journey concludes with the white dwarf slowly, inevitably, cooling down. It becomes a theoretical object known as a black dwarf, a cold, dark, non-radiating ember forever suspended in the silent vacuum of space. The energetic life phase is over. The cycle of stellar existence slows to a near halt. What was once a dynamic, burning sphere of plasma is reduced to a slowly cooling, inert ember. It remains, however, a powerful gravitational anchor, a relic of profound stellar history. The stellar furnace has banked its fire, leaving behind a monument to cosmic time and unimaginable thermodynamic forces. The ultimate fate is not a dramatic explosion, but a slow, stately fade into the cosmic background radiation, a quiet, profound return to pure nothingness. Chapter 11. The extremes of stellar mass, beyond the white dwarf. While the gentle, magnificent resignation of the white dwarf marks the predictable end for stars in our local galactic neighborhood. The cosmic canvas is painted with far more violent, structurally complex tales. To complete the stellar biography, we must shift our focus dramatically, contemplating stars born exponentially more massive than our own sun. Stars whose initial mass dwarfs the entire solar system. These colossal cosmic behemoths operate under entirely different physical laws, their lives leading to endpoints characterized not by a slow fade, but by cataclysmic, breathtaking violence. The transition to these superstellars is not merely increased luminosity. It represents an entirely different thermodynamic regime, governed by immense gravitational pressure that defy the quiet stability achieved by the lower mass stars. These massive nuclei are galactic engines, consuming their fuel at rates that measure time in mere millions of years, rather than billions. Their existence introduces an entirely new set of physical thresholds, culminating in core processes that no solar mass star can ever attain. This divergence in stellar fate is dictated by one simple, yet absolute rule: initial mass. The greater the gravitational pull, the more profound, and the shorter the eventual demise. Chapter 12. The onslaught of superfusion burning through the elements. Unlike the comparatively simple hydrogen-fueled burning of the star like our sun, the core of a truly massive star is a factory of unimaginable fury, cycling through progressively heavier elements in a spectacular, layered sequence. The initial hydrogen fusion proceeds normally, but as the core exhausts its fuel, the central pressure and temperature climb so rapidly that the next element, helium, is forced to ignite through processes far more energetic than the triple alpha reaction. This process continues, building outward through successive nuclear burning stages. Carbon burning, fusing carbon into neon and magnesium. Oxygen burning, fusing oxygen into silicon. And then, finally, the astonishing, dense core of silicon igniting to synthesize the heaviest elements up to iron. Each subsequent stage is shorter and more violent than the last. The core spends microseconds burning silicon. The energy release is staggering. The resulting heat, a terrifying testament to physics pushed to its absolute limit. The nuclear furnace operating within these colossal stars is not merely powerful. It is the most energetic engine known in the cosmos. Pause. Deepen the sensory description of the escalating star. Pause. The star becomes a crucible of creation, a point where matter is stripped down to its constituent nuclei, momentarily held together by the sheer force of stellar gravity. For these moments, the star burns hotter, brighter, and more violently than any star we can comprehend. It is building its stellar obituary, fusing element after element, creating a progressively heavier core, layer by dazzling layer. Pause. But this grand, magnificent cycle cannot continue indefinitely. Pause. The relentless, crushing weight of the overlying stellar mantle continues to exert its gravitational tyranny upon the core. The fuel, the magical, final component required for sustaining the immense internal pressure, is exhausted. The final, insurmountable critical point is reached. Pause. The star, having successfully engineered the largest element it can fuse by capturing protons into iron Phi, encounters a terminal physical limit. Iron 56, ironically, is the peak element in the periodic table in terms of binding energy per nucleon. Fusing anything asterisk heavier than iron consumes energy rather than releasing it. It is the ultimate thermodynamic dead end. Pause. With no more radiant energy to counteract the inexorable force of gravity, the catastrophic implosion begins. Pause. This is the moment of unimaginable collapse. Pause. The core collapses inward at a fraction of the speed of light, traveling toward the ultimate, inescapable point of density. Milliseconds stretch into eternities. The stellar material is crushed under pressures that dwarf anything in our terrestrial experience, overcoming the known forces of nature. Pause. Build tension through the description of the core collapse. Pause. The collapse compresses the star's entire remaining mass into an impossibly small volume, driving densities so extreme that electrons and protons are forced to merge, creating pure neutrons, resulting in a hyperdense, incompressible core. Pause. The implosion, so rapid and catastrophic, only ceases when the material hits a fundamental, repulsive limit, the neutron degeneracy pressure. The collapse is halted abruptly. Pause. The energy released by this sudden, violent stop, the energy differential between the collapsing state and the stable, hyperdense core, is instantaneously converted back into a catastrophic outward-rushing shockwave. Pause. This is the supernova. Pause. The explosion is not just bright. It is one of the most energetic releases of energy in the known universe. It outshines entire galaxies, blasting the stellar material, the synthesized elements, out across the interstellar medium at tremendous velocities. The star sheds its layers in a spectacular, magnificent farewell. Pause. What remains at the epicenter of this cataclysm depends entirely on the original mass of the progenitor star, determining one of the universe's most spectacular endpoints. Pause. Transition to the aftermath, the remnant. Pause. If the original star was sufficiently massive, the core collapse forces the remnant into a state of unimaginable gravitational power. The neutron star. A neutron star is a cosmic object so dense that a single teaspoon of its material would weigh billions of tons, packing a city's mass into a sphere merely 20 kilometers wide. It spins at phenomenal rates and vibrates under unimaginable tension. Pause. But if the original progenitor mass was colossal enough, exceeding the theoretical limits of even a neutron star, gravity wins entirely. The repulsive forces of the neutrons cannot halt the cosmic collapse. Pause. The remnant collapses past the neutron degeneracy pressure, continuing its descent until it forms a singularity, the black hole. Pause. A black hole is not merely a collapsed star. It is a tear in the very fabric of space-time. Its gravity is so profound that nothing, not light, not energy, not the strongest known force, can escape once it crosses the point of no return, the event horizon. It is the perfect cosmic trap, an ultimate drain at the edge of universal understanding. Pause. From the gentle, hydrogen-fueled fuse to the incandescent death throes of a supernova, and finally to the chilling, eternal embrace of a singularity. The life cycle of the massive star is the grandest, most violent, and most transformative demonstration of physics in the cosmos. A cosmic engine that forges the very elements that make up life itself.